Alright, we are back with our Compass 3D Plus build video. You'll notice a slight change of venue here, so from my office to my home, but in any case, my engine and my muffler have now arrived. I've got the OS55HZ, as you will see there. I've also got the brand new GP exhaust muffler to go with that, that's matched for the new high displacement engines. So I won't put that on right now, but I will put that on obviously at the end of the build. Now, just referring back to the manual, the step that I've just completed installing the engine and the base plate is step number 2 in the manual. So that's what I'm referring to when I'm doing this section of the video. It's fairly straightforward. It essentially shows you how to install the fan hub, the clutch, and the soft engine mount, the soft vibration absorbing engine mount around the nose of the crankcase there. It's actually a very, very straightforward install. There's just a couple of little gotchas and things that are not 100% clear in the manual, and some things to help simplify the install that I thought I would point out to you. First of all, when you once you put the first thing that you do is you put this crankcase dampener, this soft mount crankcase dampener with the engine out of the heli, that is. You install the dampener over the nose of the crankcase there, and then you basically build up from there your clutch stack. So then you put on your fan hub, you put on your prop nut, which cranks down the fan hub, and you need to use plenty of Loctite on there and use a crank locking tool to lock the crank in place whilst you lock down the prop nut. As per the manual, you do leave the engine thrust washer in place, and what's not 100% clear from the manual is there is actually a nut in the mounting hardware bag for the fan hub. There's actually a washer that goes underneath the engine nut, the crankshaft lock nut. There's a washer that goes underneath that on top of the fan hub before you put the engine nut on. So go ahead and use that. It does not show, if you look in the manual on step 2, it does not show the washers that go underneath the head of the bolts that go through the engine mounts. This portion here, there's washers underneath those screws. That's not shown in the manual, but it does have washers underneath there. There are no washers underneath the bolts that go through the engine ears into the engine mounts. And also the bolt lengths on the screws that go through the clutch. These lengths as per the manual and these lengths per the manual are slightly off. So if you get some screws and you measure them into the places where they're meant to go and they're a millimeter or 2 off, don't worry about it. They differ very slightly from the manual by about a millimeter on those sets of bolts. Doesn't matter. In this case, these bolts are about a millimeter longer than what the manual says. These bolts are about a millimeter shorter. Doesn't affect it whatsoever. When you are putting the base plate on, you will need to make sure that I'll just turn this over here so you can actually see it. The base plate in the front goes on top of the landing gear, and the base plate at the back goes just into that vertical brace, the frame brace that goes up vertically between the frames. It screws into the base of that. It's not real clear from the manual that this base plate goes on top of the landing gear at the front. So go ahead and make sure that you do put it on top of the landing gear, and then the bolts go up through. Once again, there are washers that go underneath the heads of these bolts here and these bolts here, and it is not 100% clear from the manual that they do get washers. So hopefully that makes the engine installation nice and clean and easy for you. It is actually a very simple install. The clutch bell and the fan shroud are pre-installed by the factory. The other point I will make that makes it a little bit easier to do the install is I removed these screws, this Phillips head screw on either side that is actually part of the plastic frame brace that's between the frames. I actually removed those screws from either side. I didn't take the plastic pre-installed brace out, but what it did is it allowed the frames to come apart enough to allow the crankcase dampener to slide up between the frames very, very easily. So obviously I slid that all together, bolted it all together, and then I put those Phillips head screws back in again. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to get the engine and the base plate installed. It is actually very straightforward, but those were just a couple of gotchas The bolt lengths are slightly different to the manual. These do get washers underneath the head of the bolts as per the parts bag. And underneath here you do get washers both there and there underneath the head of the bolts of the base plate. So anyways, hopefully that helps you out, and we'll be moving on to the next steps now.